The topic today is incest, the sexual abuse we still don't talk about. We are talking about Me Too. Because of the Me Too movement in the last few years, we're talking about, more than ever, we're talking about awareness of gender differences, gender roles, boundaries, personal spaces, violations, consent. We are talking about trauma, we're talking about how that affects us, we're talking about how that affects a person, we're talking about how that affects a community. Yet, we don't talk about incest. And it's alarming that we don't talk about incest because it is still, we shy away from it, right? We don't even want to accept that it exists. And so what is incest? Incest, okay, it's unnatural sexual relationships between family members, between kinship, between people that you may not be, it might not be okay for you to marry. So for us to understand, we need to take it forward a step. It's not just sexual intercourse that we're talking about. It's about all inappropriate behavior. It's that look, it's that touch, it's that kiss, it's that exposure, it's that dirty joke, it's that educating somebody, whether it's a father to daughter, whether it's a cousin to cousin, whether it's a niece to uncle, whether it's a foster kid to a foster kid, whether it's a sibling to sibling sexual abuse, whether it's just exposure. That's incest. And that's why we want to shy away from it. And we don't want to talk about it, is because that's sacrilegious or that's scary because it shakes our own foundation. It shakes how we think of ourselves or families, all that is good, all that is precious, all that we need to save. And here we are saying precisely the dangers coming from this family. That's why we probably don't talk about it. And you know how many of us, especially children, are exposed to this? It's alarming when you look at it. 1 in 5 girls, 1 in 5 girls, and 1 in 7 boys. 1 in 7 boys. Some statistics say that sexual abuse is this high. And other statistics say this is still an underreported number. And again, statistics say 95% of these abuses are by people who are actually supposed to be helping them and protecting them. And again, why don't we talk about it? Is because, not only because it's an inherent something that we don't want to look at, but it's also, there are a lot of myths around it. If a child says something or the other, and especially when a young girl comes up and says that this happened, we've heard, unfortunately, disastrous stories of, oh, she wanted it. Oh, it was just curiosity. Oh, brother touched the sister, or the sister did something to the brother. That's just natural curiosity. And they're siblings and they're cousins. Nothing's going to matter. They're going to grow out of it. It doesn't mean anything. So, you know, you're just making too big a deal out of it. So these are all the things that we use to cover up, not to talk about it, not to accept it. And those are precisely the burdens, the hurdles and the boulders that we need to leap across to open our minds and hearts and souls and to actually just see the reality right in front of us. Because we don't talk about it, the just incest is cloaked in so much of shame and so much of fear. That's why people don't talk about it. And we have a lot of studies and statistics that say that up to 75% to 85% of those children who were touched inappropriately, who were harassed, who were abused, had said something to somebody and they were unheard. And that is again another trauma that we are going to talk about. Where does it happen? Because we always, you know, when anything unpleasant happens, it's always that, oh, it doesn't happen to us, it happens to them. Oh, it doesn't happen here, it happens there. We always want to make something that happens to others or somewhere else. But no, it's universal and it doesn't spare any of us. It doesn't spare a girl, it doesn't spare a boy, it doesn't spare a somebody from the LGBT community. It doesn't spare somebody who's very, very rich. It doesn't spare somebody who's very, very poor. It doesn't spare somebody who's middle class. It doesn't spare somebody who goes to school. It doesn't spare somebody who doesn't go to school. It doesn't spare somebody who's married and is being, again, incested by a father-in-law or a grandfather or a brother-in-law. It doesn't spare any of us. And that's why, again and again, we need to start thinking that, no, we have to normalize talking about this so that we remove and take away the shame and guilt. That's the barrier that we have to cross. It is somewhat more common in segregated communities. It is somewhat more common where people are living in cramped spaces. I come from an urban background. I work in Mumbai. I work in the community. I get called by the teachers from schools to talk to these girls who are going to a vernacular school and all of that for sex education, where even from private schools, they might shy away from that topic even now. And the teachers, they will tell me that, oh, they see so much from such a young age because they live in these small spaces with 10 people living in the same place, where somebody has to change in front of somebody else, where somebody's peeping from a window. So they've already seen sexual relations happening, people actually having sex with each other, the groans and the moans, and it confuses them, and occasionally it over-sexualizes them, and sometimes it makes them completely shy away from any relationship. And the teachers are so scared that most of their kids are being victimized in one way or the other. So it's rampant in small cramped spaces, and it is rampant in isolated communities. And again, like I said, it's universal. It doesn't spare anyone. Where basic amenities are not available, yes, we see this quite a lot as well. Where there is a family history of, let's say, a substance abuse in the family, or where, let's say, maybe the male person, the perpetrator, the person who's doing the crime, he may have personality disorders, psychiatric disorders. So presence of certain kind of psychiatric disorders, yes, those are the places that you'll see more of incestual relationships and kids getting incested. When we're talking about incest, commonly it starts in a younger age group. So that's why there's a lot of grooming that involves. Grooming is this person, this perpetrator, he picks a victim. Then he'll systematically start grooming this person, boy, girl, cousin, niece, daughter, daughter-in-law, doesn't matter, because we have very early ages of marriage as well in India. They start grooming them because they want that relationship to continue. They are not satisfied with that one episode of violation, that one episode of abuse. So they groom them because they want to continue the relationship, but they also groom them because they want them to keep quiet about it. And I was just discussing with a friend of mine earlier, and I was like, no, the people who do this kind of an offense, they don't do it just once. It doesn't happen just once. They are career criminals. They are career abusers. So they have a pattern. They have a pattern of how to pick a victim. They have a pattern of how to groom a victim, because you will see that young boys or girls, they have one affinity for a particular relative, and that a particular relative showers them more with gifts and attention and takes them out and does all of that. And we are happy thinking that, oh, there's bonding, that's nice. But we might be missing out that no, the bonding is of this kind. So the child or the young person may be attracted to those gifts, and yes, may be bribed or emotionally blackmailed into taking those gifts, and then shamed. But you like this. You wanted it. You looked at me like that. I didn't want this. That's what grooming involves as well. So by the time the child is a little bit more aware and knows that, no, this is not okay, this should not go on, they don't know what to do anymore. They don't even know how to stop it because they are confused. Maybe I do like it. Yes, I did like that. Yes, I did accept that gift. So yeah, I have no moral high ground to say anything. I'm equally at fault. That is what grooming does, and that's what helps them continue to do this. A young man, 24-year-old young man, messages me in the night, I'm going for a wedding tomorrow, okay? It's a family wedding, okay? And that cousin's going to be there. What do? I think I shouldn't go. So then I give him tips, what to do, how to take care of yourself, how not to be alone with him and all of that. Not only because that person will come and get him inside somewhere, but this 25-year-old boy who's a professional, he's doing very well for himself, independent, is still scared. I won't be able to say no. I don't know how to say no to this person. I have no problem saying no to anybody else, but I don't know how to say no to this person. So this continues because they go through, like I said, they go through shock, they go through guilt, they go through self-blame, they go through like a kind of thing that, oh, this had to happen to me, why did God choose me? Maybe because this is something that I've done wrong and I have to pay for it. They go through tremendous amount of shame. And the self-blame, if this happened to me, there must be something wrong with me, that's why this happened. They go through anger, they go through denial, okay, no, this might be wrong, this might be right. They go through self-harm. We see a lot of children cutting, we see a lot of children harming themselves one way or the other, whether that's by direct cutting, slashing themselves, whether that's indulging in more substance abuses. There is an increased risk of suicide in people with a history of incestual relationships. The trauma is lifelong. The trauma is lifelong. So it becomes very difficult for us to say, should we continue to call them victims? Should we say survivors? Is victim the right label for them? Or is survivor the more positive approach towards them? But we keep oscillating because the trauma is lifelong. They have trust issues, they have relationship issues, they have self-loathing, they have low self-esteem that impacts every decision that they make throughout the rest of their lives till the day they die. So it's even if they've been in therapy, they've taken medications, they've had good health, they've had good relationships, but the trauma is lifelong. It's not something that you get over. It can make them they will always struggle with power issues at work where there's nothing sexual, maybe, hopefully. At home, they don't know how to treat themselves with respect. They don't know how to accept or expect respect. The number of really everyday life choices that, like I said, depend on this. The psychiatric impact of it is that, yes, we have more number of people with this kind of history, with depression, with anxiety disorders, with bipolar disorders, with suicide, because it's a developmental trauma. So especially when this is happening at a younger age, when the brain is developing, the worldview is developing, so that increases my risk of having a medical disorder when I grow up. So a developmental trauma is again going to make my genetics vulnerable to disorders. That's also going to impact not only the quality of my life, but also the longevity of my life. So again, like I said, the trauma is lifelong. There's this one young lady who, so all the cases that I'm going to share today, I have consent from them. I had to specifically ask people that I knew that they are not going to be triggered by even me mentioning. I'm not going to give out any information that might even suggest who they are, but these are young, proud, and so brave young people that they were so eager and happy for me to share their story with them. After a long period of struggling with depression and eating disorders and all of that, she finally got the courage and told her siblings that the cousin and what the cousin was doing. And since then, the siblings have kind of come around and they've helped her. Every time he's around, they see to it that she's protected and she's not, because she's 24 years old, 25, 26 by now. But there's still this kind of, initially the fear, the sheer fear of being in the same room like this person. And at the same time, the guilt that I didn't say anything before this. And at the same time, now thankfully she's much better at it. So sexual abuse experiences in childhood are connected with increased incidences of psychiatric disorders in the future, in adulthood. When we talk about why families don't report, because a lot of the times, the person that is doing the abuse is also the abuser, but the provider and the protector. So the functions of this person are so overlapped. So if I say this is an abuser and I need to shun this person or cut him off, but he's also the protector and provider. So I have this old woman coming in. She's struggling with depression and anxiety since the last 10 years because her daughter finally told her that the elder brother abused her. And the mother is so conflicted even now because she's an old woman now, both kids are really, really grown up, and she doesn't know what to do with this information anymore. She doesn't know how to feel, she doesn't know how to behave, she doesn't live with the son, thankfully she's managed that, but she doesn't know what to do because he's also the provider and the protector. And we are talking about a relative, a caregiver of the victim. We are not even talking about the victim. So it doesn't spare your loved ones. If I'm a victim, it doesn't spare my loved ones. There's a lot of fear of family honor. Parents, don't say anything about it. Who's going to marry you, especially if it's a girl? Don't talk about it. Everybody's going to know. The father will say it's going to impact my business. It's a family business. He'll walk away. What are we going to do? So unfortunately, there are these unnecessary reasons that we think that we need to not talk about it. And parents are going to say, don't talk about this. And in the end, I'm going to again end my topic today by sharing something that this young lady who happens to be a doctor again, and she was so passionate about it, and she's like, you must go and tell them. You must go and tell them my story, and you must be my words. Tell them, believe somebody when they're saying that this happened, and don't tell them things like, get over it, don't think about it, move on. Don't say things like, oh, why did you have to tell your brother's wife about it? Or why did you have to tell that person about it? Why couldn't you keep quiet about it? It happened. Yes, we are very upset this happened, but you know what, let's all forget about it. He's not that bad a person anymore. So she really, really wanted me to be here and say and share this with you guys. Don't do this to anybody else. Make it easy for the victims to come out and share. That's the only way that we're going to be able to protect other generations and other children, because that's what's going to scare the perpetrators. And at the end, we are going to have to open our hearts and our minds to them. We are going to have to believe, and we are going to have these adults who have been victims and survivors, who are continuing to be victims and survivors. We are going to have these children. We are going to have to empower them by being human, by being empathetic, by being compassionate.